Hello, everybody. I'm Roberto Hassan, and today we're going to speak with a veteran of show business that during his long career, he worked as a production manager with a lot of different artists as Enrique Iglesias, Meghan Trainor, the Backstreet Boys, and especially he worked for a long time with Linkin Park as director of touring and production. He's even the president and co-founder of the international nonprofit Event Safety Alliance. But let's hear his story from his own voice. So today is here with us, Jim Digby. So welcome, Jim. How's it going?
Ciao, Roberto. Grazie mille. Thank you so much for having me.
Perfect. Perfect Italian.
Thank you so much for having me on your program. Grazie, grazie. So so for me, I think you're asking what's my story, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, let's start from the beginning. So where it all began. So if you can tell us how your career started, that's what I wanted to know, and then we go.
The beginning is 10 years old, believe it or not. I grew up in a school district that had a very strong theater and television program as an extracurricular activity for the arts. And in my 5th grade year, my teacher made me the master of ceremonies and the technician for the May Day parade. And I was hooked. That was it. I was hooked. And she sent my name on to the middle school, to the theater television arts teacher. That was Connie Dyer, and she took me under her wing. And man, it's a good thing that was there, because I was not a great student, but I was amazing on stage and in behind the scenes at the stage and the television studio. And I was close enough to walk to my school. So I spent every free minute I had behind the scenes at the stage, making flats or props or whatever, and then working with the television cameras. And that's all I've really kind of ever known. I tried university and I didn't fit, but then I tried technical trade school, electronics trade school, and came out of electronics trade school into a job hunt. At that time, the money machines were brand new technology, and my first real job with a paycheck was fixing money machines. Within about 6 months of that, my mother had shown me an advertisement for a job at a theater nightclub near where we lived. And this is a massive new construction project, dinner theater and nightclub. And I went in and I worked there. I was a technician involved in building the club. And then I became a lighting technician in the DJ booth. And the part of that story that's relevant to the longer story that maybe we get to tell today is on the grand opening night of that theater, it was the press opening, a lighting fixture, a special effects lighting fixture fell from the ceiling of this club and killed a girl very close to where I was standing. And I attempted to do CPR on this person. I was young, I was 19. And she died, and I was operating the lighting fixture. The contractors who were building these special effects had not put the safety mechanisms in, and the thing went right off the end of the track and killed this girl. So that impacted me, and as part of this life story that we'll be telling today. From the nightclub, I went to work with Disney. I did special effects, special events, fireworks, and lasers. And that was fun. And I went to film school while I was working at Disney. And then I got my first tour, which was not a rock and roll tour. It was the 200th anniversary of the Bill of Rights. So we took around one of the original 200-year-old handwritten copies of the first amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And we took it to all 50 states. This tour went on for more than a year. And the guy who was in charge of that tour was also the guy who did Genesis and Phil Collins and Pink Floyd and other major artists like that. And he took me under his wing. And here I am. So that's how the touring career, that's the evolution toward the touring career. And that's how that started.
Okay. And you're mostly known for your long collaboration with Linkin Park. I mean, you started with them in 2002, and how the collaboration started with them. I mean, how the collaboration with Linkin Park began.
Yeah, I was on the way to 2002. I had been doing some stage management work. I'd been doing some work with MTV Unplugged series and the Fashionably Loud series, and I had done a show with Hootie and the Blowfish at around 1990, I think it was 5, and then became their production manager. And that started this kind of journey of production management. I worked with a couple of different artists leading up to 1999. I started working with Marilyn Manson. So I had Marilyn Manson for his 2 biggest records, Guns, God, and Government, and I think it was Beautiful Creatures, which was a really interesting part of my professional journey working with him. Shortly after that, while Manson wasn't touring and Linkin Park had finished the full cycle of Hybrid Theory, a colleague of mine had made an offer for me to come in and cover for him on some Linkin Park shows. And I think the first one I did was in Mexico. It was they were opening for, I want to say it was Limp Bizkit. And we kind of hit it off. A friend of mine who was working their security at the time asked me to come meet them when they were playing Philadelphia. I think that was the first time I met them before this show in Mexico. And he introduced me to them while they were doing a photo shoot underneath a bridge near the arena in Philadelphia. And then they went into that long break after Hybrid Theory, and when Meteora, so I worked those first Project Revolution shows, those first indoor Project Revolution shows with Cypress Hill and some other great bands. And then there was that break while they rested and got ready for Meteora. And then when Meteora came, I got asked to come back. So that was the beginning of the journey. And it took some time for us to understand each other and for me to understand how best to work around them. But I'm thankful for that experience, because what evolved was their professional style and my eventual professional style were aligned. And I think had I continued working with Marilyn Manson or an artist, maybe a different artist, I think I might have ended up being in a different place in my career. But because Linkin Park had this very serious professional business ethic around the way they did business, and because I wanted to have that very serious professional ethic, we kind of grew up together and got to the same place.
And do you have any special memory with them? I mean, if you can tell us one story that happened, something cool during all of these years that you worked with them.
Oh, geez, I know it's going to sound corny, but the entire journey was a special memory. Working with them and watching the way that they respected their audience and the fan club evolution and the evolution of the summits, all of these component parts of what made them, in my view, an outstanding artist, unique in the way that they treated the business and their fans. All of those things are special memories for me. Going over to China and doing some of the first rock shows ever in China was really unique. And I love the fact that wherever we traveled, there was a great love for the guys. And it was fun to be on the outside watching the fan love for the band. I never wanted to be on stage myself. I always saw myself as a technician in a supporting role. So I was never confused about where I belonged in the whole organism. So it was, I kind of felt like a proud big brother, or dare I say proud dad, taking them around the world as we did. And the fun times, with Mike on his solo projects, Fort Minor, and then I got the chance to help Chester with one of his charity benefits that he took place every year in Arizona. And it really, the organism of Linkin Park is a family, from management through the ranks of the touring team and the supporting team at the record label. It's unlike any of my other artist experiences where, it felt like every human, and I believe every human, was truly valued, not just by the guys, but by the machine that was Linkin Park. And hopefully will be again someday. We don't know.
And I want to say something that maybe not everybody knows, that in the team of the Linkin Park, there's even an Italian guy. So it's not something really common that such a big band as Linkin Park have an Italian guy. So I mean, for us, it's something that is great,
Are you speaking of Lorenzo?
Yeah, of course, Lorenzo
Oh
Enrico. I mean.
What a lovely human being he is, and his predecessor Adam, the same thing. Just like these guys, young when I met them, very young, but their commitment to the fans and their genuineness and their truth changed who I became. I was impacted by their commitment. It was just, they were constant reminders for anybody. It didn't matter who they were talking to, that the fans come first. The fans come first. The fans come first. And it's because of Adam and Lorenzo, I think, that we were able to, as a family, cultivate such great connections with the fans. It was great to feel the love, even as someone who is not a member of the band. It's always great to feel the love from the fans. And it's a very fine line. A lot of artists, and this might have been true for the guys as well, but a lot of artists don't want anyone other than themselves to be recognized and to be known. And it wasn't as though we were intentionally sharing the spotlight with the band. That wasn't, no, but I don't think anybody was doing that on purpose. But because we had those summits and we had these kind of touch points where the fandom and the crew could know each other, it created this extra special connection that you don't get on a lot of other artists. It's not that it doesn't exist, but it was extra special with Linkin. Yeah. And
do you know, I mean, if you have an idea of what will the future of Linkin Park be like? I mean, now what's going to happen, if there's something moving on, or if you know something?
I wish, I should carry a prop on my desk, as a crystal ball prop on my desk, because it really, it's not, first of all, I'm not connected to that conversation. It's not where I sit in the professional ecosystem. Yeah. I stay in touch with many of the team. And I don't know that I have any, well, I know that I don't have any information about what the future is. I know that, that all the guys still love each other very much. We, obviously we all miss Chester and we miss what was happening, but that's a life that was then, and the now is something different. I think I can say with relative confidence, not because I've been in a conversation and not because anybody shared it with me, but my opinion is that only when there is a solution that honors the thing that Linkin Park is, only when there is a truly honorable solution, if that ever comes, will there be, a next time. I'm, look, I don't have any inside information. I'm just telling you what my heart says.
Of course.
What I'm fairly confident won't happen is a cheap solution, right? There won't be, we're going to take just a singer from some TV show and we're going to create a new thing. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think the guys are committed to if something happens in the future, they're committed to making sure that it's in true honor of Chester and true honor of the music and true honor of the fans, in no particular priority. I don't think they would try to sell anybody anything cheap.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. And I mean, and during all your long career, I mean, with Linkin Park, with other artists, and which is do you have, or maybe which is the best show you've worked on? If there's one you can say, or maybe a period, or maybe a tour, if you have it.
Well, geez, one of the most heartfelt, the time the fans grabbed my heart the hardest, or grabbed our heart the hardest and ripped it apart, was the first flash mob on oh shoot, what was it? Wisdom, Justice, and Love, and the fans held up the placard, the printed papers, all of them pretty much had held up Wisdom, Justice, and Love, and it was, I think, one of the first times we had played that. They had played that song. Boy, was that special. That was super special. It's interesting because one of the challenges is that, how do you, the six of them have such great stage presence and such great energy. Then trying to create a big production around that, like Kiss-like production around it, it's not necessary. As long as the six of them are showing up and giving it what they give every night, it doesn't need a big production. You guys don't, fans don't need a big production for a band like Linkin Park. There were moments where we could use it, and we did, but in reality, we were able to stay nimble with our production because they were bringing all the energy. Why overshadow that with production stuff?
I can just say that that's true because I saw them in Italy twice, once in Rome and once in Milan, and it's really true. I mean, they didn't need it. They were enough.
Yeah, that's it. They're enough. And the fact that they reach out and touch the audience the way that they do during the show, you don't want fake blood and high heels and all that other distraction stuff. You don't need it. And that was one of the things I enjoyed about them as well. We were constantly in this battle about, we got to have big production. Well, do we really? I don't think that we do. Look, they're still out there giving it. They're all Chester's still jumping off the top of the drum riser, right? So, anyhow, that was fun.
Yeah, and so I think, in my opinion, that after Chester dead, the music business started speaking much more about the mental health problems in entertainment workers. For everybody. And what do you think? What are the mental health problems that can affect entertainment workers? If there are something specific, if you think, and is there any special precaution you're taking to prevent mental health issues in the music business? I know you're working with mental health first aid training. So, if you can tell us more about it.
Thanks for that question, Roberto, because I do think it's super important for all of the music industry, not just the artists on stage, but those who support them behind the scenes and those who work from their home offices and try to manage them. There is the mental health, cerebral wellness in live events or in the entertainment business is not a new challenge, right? I believe because many of our artists manifest their art form perhaps because of some other trauma. There's this unscientifically proven case that a lot of comedians are very dark when they're not on stage, and their comedy is a way to protect them from whatever pain or injury they're suffering in their lives. Now, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not trying to speak like a doctor.
Yes,
but I do work in the industry, and I am a victim of the roller coaster ride, and I watch what the roller coaster ride does to my peers. And it wasn't until Chester's death by suicide that, we kind of went eyes wide open and went, holy mackerel, and then started looking around. And we weren't the first to look at this problem. We're certainly, they're not the last, we're not the best, but at that moment in time, it seemed like a lot of people's eyes were opening up. Not only because of Chester. And I think what's evolved since then that's positive is that we can speak about this cerebral wellness issue more openly, more freely, and not, the whole world is shifting to this place where hopefully the majority is less judgy and more welcoming and more empathetic to everyone, to every human type and nature. And part of that is understanding that life isn't about fame and fortune and all of these other things. It's about living. It's about what's happening in the small moments, and recognizing that artists may be these, especially these quintessential artists, may be in that place, may be quintessential because they've got some deep pain that they're dealing with. So what I've personally become a big proponent for, and it was, if the first thing that happened was after Chester passed, I worried for our children, because our children, that he was their first icon. He was the first star they ever knew, and they had a little bit of access to him, so there was a personal connection, and they were super young, especially my son. So I went and took the mental health first aid training for children, so that I could be mindful of anything that might be indicative of pain that my son was not expressing. And that training taught me the things that I didn't know how to look for as a professional, right? So even though it was youth focused, the idea that, for instance, when somebody had this moment, when somebody had said to me they had voices in their head, I probably just shook that off. I'm like, I have voices in my head all the time. But what I didn't appreciate or didn't know at that point in time, that some people's volume on their voices in their head is a lot louder than the volume on mine. And they can be super destructive to your ability to, voices in your head can be super destructive to your ability to focus and reason through the day. So there was a couple of real impact moments in taking that training that went, man, I saw that. I didn't know that was a sign, or geez, I wish I had known this thing before that moment happened. And that was, I don't profess to think that we could have ever changed the outcome. I just think, geez, I wish I had known more, because I would have been a better brother, father, whatever it might have been. And also, one of the ways it was couched back to us was to say we were part of the system that kept it going as long as we did, that the problem might have manifested sooner. So mental health first aid is similar to CPR in that you're applying mental health first aid in some instances as a backstop once somebody's already in trouble. There's already a panic attack, or there's already a drinking or a drug problem, or whatever it might be. So we also want to address the front end of that. What can we do preemptively? What can we do positively at the beginning of a tour or a show or whatever the circumstance is, to help the team and the artists not get to the point where they need mental health first aid? So first we got to name it. And what we see is, most of us go on an adrenaline high with dopamine and all the other naturally occurring chemicals in the body. The house lights go out and the crowd goes crazy, and you get chills as a technician or as an artist. You're getting kind of a natural high from that. And so you go on this roller coaster during the show, the end of the show, curtain call, big applause, natural high again. And then you load it out, rush, all that adrenaline and a natural high. And then you get onto a bus and you close the curtain, and now you're in darkness and silence. So we recognize that that's one of the precipitators to potentially challenging cerebral effects, and that you're going through this natural high in your body. So some people want to continue that feeling because it feels so good. So they reach for X. So first we talk about that. And then we talk about, what are the tools you can use to calm yourself, or what are the tools you can use, what's breath work exercise. There's a lot of things we can do productively, preemptively on the front end of everyday life, so that we don't need the backstop of mental health first aid. So the Event Safety Alliance and other great groups around the industry have been trying to promote the idea that, hey, look, Cerebral wellness, mental wellness is part of everyday life. If you break your hand, you're going to go see a doctor. You're going to get a cast on it. If something's wrong with your head, it has to be okay. That's okay. So mostly, I think for me personally, I'm trying to echo the idea to the other leaders I speak with that having empathy and being a sympathetic, authentic servant leadership type, meaning, I'm trauma informed because I went through something myself. I can see that person's having a hard time. Hey, let me give you the space to work that out. And here's some resources to work it out. I think that's where we are, or we're heading towards more frequently in the industry.
Okay, so you just named Event Safety Alliance, and where you are okay. We are the co-founder and the president. Okay, but if you can tell us something more even about it, and what is it doing now all around the world?
So this goes back to that story about being in the nightclub when I was 19. In 2011. I think Linkin Park was on tour, but in the late summer of 2011, I think it was August, a storm blew through the Indiana State Fair.
Yes.
And a stage collapsed and it killed 7 people and a bunch of other people were seriously wounded. And it, at the end of the forensic investigation into that, we learned that whole event was avoidable. It could have been, it didn't have to happen. And, I think initially after it happened, I was on a journey of holy mackerel, that could have been me. Well, what didn't I know that kind of event could have happened to me professionally? And I had, my son was just born and I had all these new things that I was concerned about. So in the initial aftermath, I went on this journey of trying to find anything that would teach me how to not let that happen to me. And the truth about our industry behind the scenes is there's very little, if any, professional designations or professional trainings that someone who is the adult in charge has to go through to become the adult in charge. I mean, there's no training to be a production or tour manager. You learn it on the job, and you either get good at it or you don't do it. So I found a class that was out there for people who work in venues, and I went to that training, and I recognized that it's very close to what I do for a living, and there was nobody else who does what I do for a living in that class. I thought, that's really strange. These are the same people who we're dealing with every day when we go into a venue. I met some really smart people during that training, and there was also happening at that same time some conversations among many of the industry leaders about, geez, how could that happen in Indiana? What can we do to make sure it never happens again? At the end of the day, there was enough conversation for about a year about Indiana and creating rules or trying to create mechanisms which would prevent it. And then at the same time, the governor of Indiana was attempting to establish some laws that would have negatively impacted shows in Indiana. And we thought, oh my gosh, we don't want that to become law because the audience will suffer for that, and the shows will be awful and the artists won't enjoy their time. So we, the early iteration of the Event Safety Alliance went with a party of a few people up to Indiana and met with the governor and his council and said, look, the industry currently doesn't have guidelines for these sorts of things. We're fixing that. And we had, by that time, had advanced a draft copy of best practices. We shared that with the governor. We said, look, I know you're something along the lines of, we know you're in a rush to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So are we, but please let the industry help to create the guidelines that will police the industry. And he agreed, and off to work we went. By 2014, 3 years later, we had created the first body of knowledge around safety and live events in North America captured in writing. Prior to that, it was all, best guessing, more or less, that people were following whatever rules they wanted to. So then the Event Safety Alliance was formed as a nonprofit to be the advocacy group which speaks to the culture of safety and tries to promote the culture of safety in live events, and also create standards and practices that prevent injuries and accidents, and then also create the education that teaches those standards and practices to help prevent injury and accident. And with a partnership with a group called ESTA, we've begun, or for over the last 5 years, we've been taking the Event Safety Guide through the American National Standards Institute so that we can elevate the work in the guide from guidance to standard. And I think at this point, we have 5 of our subject matters in the guide are now American national standards, which lends great credibility to the work that we've done, and allows us to teach it with confidence that this is good work. These are important standards. You should know these things if you're going to be participating in producing live events. So the organization has continued to grow, and it's continued to grow its subject matter experts because the industry has had traumatic event after traumatic event. Remember, we started from a stage collapse, weather-induced stage collapse. That was, there were 3 major pillars about what went wrong in the chain of causation there: the weather, the structure, and then the decision-making process. And it's in the decision-making process that we think we can be most effective in creating best practices around how those decisions get made to ensure everybody does the right thing in the face of danger. We've also impacted weather at live events. We now have a 2-day weather summit. This started almost 10 years ago. This 2-day weather summit where we go to Norman, Oklahoma, which is the home of the Severe Weather Prediction Center, and we get taught by doctors of meteorology what good weather prediction looks like, what tools are reliable enough to take weather action data from, and then how do you create trigger charts and response plans to weather threats. So it's one of our most popular products out of the Event Safety Alliance is to get this training and understand how to be responsive to weather. So from that, we then had things like the Christina Grimmie shooting, and we had the Pulse nightclub, and then we had Bataclan and Manchester and Las Vegas, and all these traumatic events after traumatic events. And the Event Safety Alliance has had to grow its subject matter expertise and look for what we do is we don't go wagging the finger. You're doing it wrong. That's not how we do it. We oh shucks, bad thing happened. How did that happen? What's the chain of causation for what happened there? And then we take that information, we distill it into guidance if it needs guidance, and then we try to teach about not letting that bad thing happen to you. So we're not in the business of policing the industry. We're in the business of helping the industry grow up and learn more about itself.
Oh, I mean, it's really nice what you do. I mean, as your job, that you take care both of mental health of people and both of physical health of people. And it's not something really common that there's someone that is in the business for a long time decides to work in this way. I mean, that's what I appreciate. And that's why I wanted you even to talk about it today with us. I mean, I mean, in some way, we should be grateful of your job, I mean, that of what you do. I mean, that's really, really important. That's what I think.
Thanks, Roberto. It's the work of many volunteers. And it's not only the Event Safety Alliance, although we have been able to propel our work around the globe, and we've got chapters in other countries, and it's important. But there are a lot of people out there fighting on behalf of the safety for the fans and the safety for the artists. And there are other good organizations that look after things like crowd management. For instance, the Event Safety Alliance has aligned with and helped to create a new organization called the Global Crowd Management Alliance. And this is specific, this group of wonderful individuals and extremely knowledgeable individuals is focused only on the crowd management aspects. And they've got, voices from New Zealand and Australia and Asia and Canada and US, and this really impactful collection of smart people who are looking at the problems relating to crowd management, not just in music concerts, but in spontaneous events like celebrations after a football win, or all of these things. And that's one of the spin-offs kind of the work of the Event Safety Alliance. There's some great people who have been participating in the ESA who were already running the UK Crowd Management Alliance, who proposed the idea of expanding that work into a global crowd management alliance. And almost overnight, this organization has grown quickly and meaningfully. And it will be a short period of time between where we are now with this organization and how that organization impacts the safety on behalf of the pedestrians, the patrons, the fans, and the staff. Nobody wants to produce shows that go wrong, and it's doggone scary when things get scary, because especially for a person like me, and I would argue probably every crowd manager out there, the last thing any of us wants is to see somebody get hurt. And when that happens, it hurts us. It's a disturbance in the force, to use a Star Wars metaphor. So we're just going to keep working. We're going to do everything we can. Accidents are going to keep happening, sadly. We're in a dangerous time in the industry because much of our experienced workforce has changed jobs due to COVID. And if they haven't changed jobs and they're coming back after a year or almost two of doing nothing in the event space. So the muscle memory and what did I do when I opened the doors, all those things is kind of a distant memory. So because that's the state of the industry right now, and at the same time, all the artists are going on tour. So you have all the artists going on tour, and you have 2/3 of the staff coming back who haven't done the job in a long time. So it's kind of a really dangerous place we're in right now. I would urge fans to always know where the way out is and to be looking out for each other at all times.
Okay. And I mean, as I said, a lot of times during this conversation, you work with a lot of bands, a lot of singers. Is there any singer that you've never worked with, or any band, and you'd love to say, wow, I would like to work with this one? Or something, or not maybe just a singer, maybe if there's something that you want to do that you've never done since now.
I know. So the answer to that is Billie Eilish, but I know who's operating Billie Eilish's tour. The production manager and her team are fantastic people, and she's in exactly the right hands in her team. And and now all I want to do is go be a fanboy for a Billie Eilish show and watch one. My daughter, who's 9, is a massive Beatles fan. So I'd love to get her to a Paul McCartney show anywhere in the world. And I think, we were huge fans of the Super Bowl halftime show. Right? Everybody.
Wow,
I love so great. I would love to go. I'd love to see that halftime show on tour. Right.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And then I have the corny side of me, which goes back to my childhood in the 70s. And James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt and these great artists that I grew up with, I would love to see. I'm just a fan. I mean, I love music, and I love watching the crowd love music. I don't like being in the crowd. I'll tell you that secret.
Okay.
I really don't.
You're in the backstage.
I love it from backstage. Or the safety of front of house.
Okay.
I have that kind of, oh gosh, I don't like to be in that many people, but I love watching that many people having so much fun. I think that's my answer.
Okay, so I mean, I hope to one day you put a tour with the Super Bowl halftime. I mean, there's gonna be something. I don't know how it can be realized, but I mean, That's
Yeah.
gonna be really, really great. I mean, really, really
Yeah.
great.
I had a minute on an Eminem tour. Their longtime production person had to he had to miss a few dates on tour. So I got to go do like 4 or 5 shows with Eminem.
Okay.
And it was great. And not, you know, the work is the work. It's pretty much the same thing. Build the show, put them on stage, take them on stage, take the show down. But the watching the fans' reaction and watching him like he's always on 100. When he goes on stage, he gives everything he's got, and it was just fun to watch his energy and the way that the fans interplayed with him. It's really great.
Yeah. So, Jim, thank you very, very much for participating at our podcast. It's been a huge honor having this conversation with you. And I mean, I'm really happy that you accepted. And I hope, I mean, what you just said about mental health, about the even physical health can affect someone. I mean, this conversation is not just something that we made between us and someone can hear, but someone can change something or can start thinking differently for everybody. I mean, and I hope that's gonna happen. I mean, that is.
The mental health first aid training has been around for 20 years. It originated in Australia, and I think something along the lines of 5 million or 8 million people have been trained on this training, and I think it's available in Italy as well. And you know, just as a human, what's wrong with going and having this education? The chances of you using CPR are significantly less than the chances of you using mental health first aid training to help someone. So there's really no good reason not to get the training, especially if you care about your friends and your family. And, you know, we need a more compassionate place. It's sad as we record this, the things are going on in Ukraine. It's so sad that we're such an advanced society, all of us around the globe, and we're still doing this. And America's you know, we've made some mistakes as well along the way. We've got to be better about caring for each other and not caring about greed. I mean, that's my big global statement. Mental health first aid is the way to go. That's how we help each other get through that.
Yeah. Okay. I hope, I mean, we can meet in Italy on another tour you're producing or touring or whatever. And really, thank you so much and for this conversation. And really,
listen,
I mean,
it was great speaking with you. I sure as heck missed the fans. I brought my family to Italy for a vacation. And they loved it. So I'm sure they're going to make me take them back there, which is okay with me. Lorenzo came along as our big brother and guide. And it was, you know, we spent a week together touring around Italy, and it was fantastic. There's so much we still haven't seen. Ciao, Roberto. Grazie mille.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, my friend.
Bye. Bye.